Factory Direct, the jewelry exchange in Redwood City.
I live for the jet stream. ABC 7, weather where you live.
Making news in America this morning. Poisonous package, an envelope bound for the White House, possibly laced with a dangerous chemical. New details on the Secret Service's investigation overnight.
American arrested a former member of the U.S. military accused of trying to join ISIS. Investigators now detailing his travel overseas with hopes of becoming a jihadist fighter.
Dangerous dinner, the famous food item inside millions of American homes being recalled. What could be inside that mac and cheese that's causing so much concern?
And shark scare, a hungry predator going after a fisherman's catch right next to the boat.
From ABC News in New York, this is America This Morning.
And good Wednesday morning to you all. Thank you for spending some time with us. We have a number of breaking stories. We're going on while you were sleeping. We start now with a scare for the Secret Service.
A substance sent to the White House has tested positive for cyanide, and more tests are being done.
It was found at a screening facility where White House mail is monitored. It was not found inside the White House itself. No one who handled that envelope at the facility was hurt. Sources say the sender is known to the Secret Service, and criminal charges depend on whether the material is confirmed to actually be hazardous.
Another breaking story overnight, a victory in Israel for the hardliners and a defeat for the peace process. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu should be able to form a government after yesterday's parliamentary elections. Despite pre-election polls, his Conservative Party picked up the most votes. The day before, Netanyahu declared there would be no Palestinian state while he was prime minister.
We are also getting late word this morning that Japanese police are investigating death threats against Ambassador Caroline Kennedy. They say an English-speaking man called the U.S. Embassy in Tokyo several times in recent weeks, threatening to kill Kennedy. Those threats may be part of a scheme to blackmail the ambassador or the embassy. Similar threats were made against the U.S. Consul General based in Okinawa.
Well, the newest American to face terrorism charges is scheduled to appear in court today here in New York.
47-year-old Tayrod Pugh is a U.S. Air Force vet. In court today, he's expected to plead not guilty to allegations he wanted to fight alongside ISIS. Pugh's already been in custody for months after spending years overseas, mostly in Egypt. Pugh was arrested in January. He flew from Egypt to Turkey in an effort to cross the border into Syria to join ISIS and fight a violent jihad. The FBI says they discovered nearly 200 jihadi videos on his computer, including one depicting ISIS executing prisoners. He spent most of his time overseas. His last known address was in this New Jersey boarding house. A former roommate said none of this sounds like the man he knew.
He was always kind. He really did seem like a nice guy.
And while the conversion from patriotic military veteran to terrorist seems like an unlikely one, federal prosecutors say over the years Pugh had one goal: becoming an enemy of the state. There were signs as far back as 2001. A former co-worker at American Airlines told the FBI that Pugh appeared sympathetic to Osama bin Laden. He was investigated but never charged.
It does appear that ISIS's reach is pretty broad, and that's a real challenge for the FBI and other law enforcement officials because there's no one community that they can focus on.
In a letter to his wife, Pugh allegedly wrote, "I am Mujahid. I am sword against the oppressor. I will use the talents and skills given to me by Allah to establish and defend the Islamic States. There is," he wrote, "only two possible outcomes for me: victory or martyr." Now, Pugh is one of 30 people from inside the U.S. accused of supporting terrorists overseas in the last 18 months. According to court papers, Pugh has already told authorities overseas that he went to Turkey for vacation and he wanted to look for a job. He said he had no desire at all to go to Syria.
New this morning, Syria is claiming it shot down a U.S. drone. Video from Syrian TV purports to show pieces of the U.S. unmanned aircraft which went down along Syria's coast. U.S. officials are trying to determine why the drone's operators lost control of it. If confirmed, this would be the first U.S. aircraft to go down over Syria since the U.S. expanded its air campaign against ISIS in September. Republican leaders are in huddle mode, trying to come up with a list of possible replacements for Illinois Congressman Aaron Schock. The scandal-plagued lawmaker has rocked the party with his sudden resignation. ABC's Jonathan Carl has details.
Aaron Schock's troubles began with that Downton Abbey office decor. At first, he defended it.
You know, as Taylor Swift said, haters are going to hate.
but then he repaid the government the $40,000 decorating tab. Schock's Instagram tells the story. He enjoyed life as a congressman, but he was under fire for allegedly excessive expenses, including $5,000 for a replica of the presidential podium. And Politico reported Schock billed the government for 170,000 miles of work travel on a car that only had 80,000 miles on it.
It's quite a downfall. At 27, Schock was one of the youngest ever elected to Congress. Now 33, he is one of the youngest ever to resign. Jonathan Carl, ABC News, Washington.
And more breaking news overnight, and this is from California, where at least 7 people were shot in a drive-by shooting. Police in Stockton say they found one woman dead on the sidewalk in front of a small grocery store. 2 other victims died at the hospital. They say it's one of the worst mass shootings in the city's history and likely gang-related. Also overnight, groups of young people are running wild through the streets of downtown Minneapolis. The police aren't quite sure what started all this. They're calling this chaos and disorder. Those were their words. About half a dozen people were arrested. 2 were treated for minor injuries.
Now to Houston, where the apartment of millionaire murder suspect Robert Durst has been searched. Authorities spent hours at the upscale condo yesterday, eventually removing 2 boxes of potential evidence. Durst remains in Louisiana, where he's been moved to a facility for the severely mentally ill. He was arrested in New Orleans and now faces a murder charge for the death of his friend, in addition to weapons and drug charges. Durst's next court appearance is on Monday. In Boston, a close friend of accused marathon bomber Dzhokhar Tsarnaev told the jury that Tsarnaev borrowed a gun from him 2 months before the attack. Prosecutors have identified the handgun as the weapon used to kill MIT police officer Sean Collier. The friend also testified that Dzhokhar seemed to be heavily influenced by his older brother Tamerlan.
Well, a major announcement today could shake up the Republican presidential race. Donald Trump. Yep, he's expected to announce that he's going to launch an exploratory committee as a signal that he's serious this time around. Trump is not going to be renewing his contract for his show, The Apprentice. Tomorrow, Trump is scheduled to visit New Hampshire, of course, home to the first primary.
The new head of the Secret Service is asking for an $8 million mock-up of the White House in order to better train agents. Joseph Clancy told lawmakers on Capitol Hill that the agency currently trains in a parking lot. He says even the Secret Service dogs are not properly trained because they walk on hard surfaces rather than grass. Critics did not appear responsive to the idea.
Well, if your GPS is acting up, you can blame the sun. We're being hit with several geomagnetic storms, which also disrupt power grids and communications, satellites. However, there's no radiation storm along with this. Among the other effects, though, the northern lights can be seen further south, and the aurora on St. Patrick's Day was actually green. So some good and some bad out of that.
Well, the solar system is not affecting the weather here on Earth. Most of the South will see rain today from the Gulf Coast up to the Ohio Valley. There will also be showers in Denver, the Dakotas, and the Southwest. Morning fog in Southern California.
Well, Boston is back down below freezing again. Colder than Alaska, actually. Today's highest temp will be in Miami, 87 degrees. Well, still ahead, a popular health insurer gets hacked, exposing millions of customers' information.
Plus, another fraternity accused of behaving badly, this time at Penn State. Secret Facebook pictures that could lead to criminal charges.
Also, a water taxi captain making a daring rescue after someone goes overboard.
America This Morning's weather, brought to you by Edward Jones.
There are big stars and smaller stars. Some shine bright, some are more subtle. Some stars have seen it all. Others are just getting started. There are stars that help with wishes and stars that lead the way. But no matter the kind, we believe every star deserves to be recognized. Keep on shining, Bay Area. We see you. Know a star where you live? Tell us at abc7news.com/stars.
Experts think we're experiencing deflation with prices and interest rates going down instead of up. So make the cash call at 866-590-CASH and refi your mortgage, even if you refinanced recently. Save with a lower rate or pull out tens of thousands, all with no closing costs.